I wish to be some. In fact, actually, I might take the chair out a little bit because after and special. Can you hear that? The chair's got these. It's got a loose screw.
Can't hear it squeaking.
All right. Anyway, I hit record, so we're keeping it in. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Off Air Voiceover Podcast. My name, of course, is Michael,
and I'm Jen.
And we have one credibly esteemed, experienced actor, voice actor. I don't even know really where to start with this. Jim, I said this here at the very beginning. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Jim Meskimen. Quite possibly, you've got enough credits that IMBD might need to build a new data center just to hold them all. So,
good old IMBD.
It is an
keep track of everything. Jobs I've long forgotten.
Yeah, it's on the web, whether you want it or not. It's on there.
Yeah,
that's right.
Genuinely, thank you so much for you taking the time to chat to us today.
You're welcome.
So
like I said, there's quite a lot of your experience, and I don't think we're going to have time to unpack all of it. So I think there's certain things that will be interesting to talk about. Rather than me speak for you, for those of you that may not be aware of yourself or your career, would you like to give a quick rundown as to your good self?
Yeah, sure. And I'm going to skew it towards voice acting because I have multiple careers, but that one is the one that I started with and really was the most prosperous with. I started in voice acting in New York City. I went specifically to New York to get into theater and live acting, and I did always feel like I could have a career in voiceover, in animation and stuff, because I'd fooled around my voice all my life. My mother is an actress, so she would demonstrate things to me, and I would, copy things. And this was a way that I could interact with people and make my friends laugh, to choose different characters and do impressions and stuff like that. So I felt like I had a kind of a leg up or a little bit of an advantage in the voice area. I also was sort of probably like you, both of you or one of you. As a child, I was intoxicated by the idea of recording my voice and hearing it back. I thought it was so exciting, and I had a little cassette player, and I would just spend endless hours making little shows and going on and on and on, and then listening and laughing, and I found that a lot of voice actors were that way too, and a lot of people that are horrified of their voice were not people like that. So I've come to realize that being very, very familiar with one's recorded voice is an important part of having a career, because you're not mortified by your actual recorded sound.
It's true that. That's one of the first things a lot of people start off. They say, I cannot bear the idea of listening to my own voice. And one thing I did in the early days was I tried to create a detachment. So, and I've said before in other episodes, when I do like a radio advert, for example, I would record it and then I'd run to the opposite end of the room and I'd look out the window. And I'll put like a 5-second delay on to give myself some time. But anyway, when my recording kicked in and I'm looking out the window, I'm like, as if I'm a consumer, and I'm like, if I heard this on the radio, would I think, God, that was terrible, or that sounds like a radio advert? And that for me was the detachment. It was like, I'm not listening to my voice and the tone of it, I'm listening to the performance side of it. Do you know what I mean?
That's a very good technique. If you can manage that, that's excellent. In all art forms, it's good to be able to take the viewpoint of the audience.
Yeah, I thought it was quite important.
It can be hard to do, though, sometimes, like take your own pride and your own whatever.
Yeah, but there's a caveat to that, though, because whilst I still do it to this day, but what I've found is I become a little bit too obsessed with perfecting every inflection, every nuance. Have I said this bit too quickly? Has this bit landed? And it gets to the point where it's like you're overcomplicating a little bit. So, it definitely works, but there are potential flaws to the process.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mind game.
But just quickly, something you mentioned there, Jim. Your mother was in Happy Days, wasn't she?
By golly, she was. Yes, she was in Happy Days. My mom is Marion Ross, who was an actress for 70 plus years. She was Mrs. C on Happy Days, and so I grew up in a household with a working actress mom who wasn't always iconic. Indeed, most of the time, all the time I lived with her, she was just a struggling, working single mom. But she became an iconic mother and a celebrated actress, and award-winning, and just treasured, I think, by people all over the world, which is very special.
Did you find that because you were around something like, because obviously Happy Days was and still is really, like, as a classic show, it's so huge. Like, did you find that being around something like that gave you had like quite a unique insight into being, obviously your mother, like being, you know, a well-known face and voice. Was that like an early insight into, I'd like to go down that kind of path?
Yeah, it was. It gave me, the best thing it gave me was to observe what a working actor does, what their schedule is like, what their discipline has to be. And in particular, what one has to do when one doesn't have work. After one's worked a bit, and then suddenly nobody's calling. And I observed a lot of things that I learned from my mom there that was very helpful.
So when I was doing some of the research before our episode, I know, Jen, you've got a few things you want to ask, but so one thing I learned was in your early days you were quite into arts of various types, and then I understand you moved to New York in the early 80s. And is it true that you had some kind of interaction with Harvey Keitel that kind of moved you more towards...
I did.
What was that about?
Yeah, Harvey Keitel, the great actor Harvey Keitel. I was in a period in my life where I was trying to sort out who I was and where I was going. I was always an artist. I'd been quite indulged by my mother in that way, in a good way, in a positive way, to pursue whatever it was that I was interested in. She certainly encouraged me as an actor. She also encouraged me as a visual artist. I was a self-taught illustrator, cartoonist, and then I actually pursued training as a classical training as a painter for about 3 years in the States and in Spain. So, but I was all through all this, I was having trouble sorting out what was the right path, as if there, you know, like what is the main current of my attention? Where should that be focused? And I had complicated that that search, which was tough enough. But I had complicated it by doing what a lot of young people do and turning to drugs for some sort of, you know, solution or distraction. Yeah. And I remember a big turning point for me was reading a book when I was sick in bed in the countryside in Spain. And I really felt like I needed some change. I had anxiety, I had jealousies, I had all these things, unwanted emotions, not to mention physically I was just not doing great. And there was a turning point for me where I really demanded some change. And I turned to my friend, my mentor, who was my painting instructor, a Spanish man named Miguel Arguello, and he recommended to me the book Dianetics. I'd heard of Dianetics, I guess, on ads or whatever, but I'd never really been attracted to it. I never thought anything about it. But this was my great mentor, who was a person I trusted and I thought was a very bright, intelligent person and a great painter. I mean, just a world-class painter. So I read the book, and that was the start back for me. And then shortly after that is when I met Harvey Keitel. Fortuitously, I had this experience walking on the streets in Madrid, and by that time I was deeply studying Dianetics, and so I was not doing drugs, and I was looking at the world somewhat differently. I was trying to build something instead of trying to tear something down.
Well,
and I happened to be going down the street, and there's Harvey Keitel. This is in Madrid on the one of the great calles there on the, I don't know, forget which one, the Calle Real or something. And there's Harvey Keitel, and I'd just seen him in Mean Streets again. I'd watched it at an art house in Holland, and it was unmistakable. There's Harvey Keitel. So I stopped him, and I talked to him. I told him, I admire your work, and blah, 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 and what are you doing here? And he said, well, I'm doing a movie. I'm shooting a film here in Madrid, and I'm just here for a few days, and blah, blah, blah. What are you doing? I told him. So it was like a very short conversation. And then we parted ways. He went his way. I never saw him again. But that moment was so exciting to me. It sort of solidified where I'd already been heading, which is like, what do I want to do with my life? How about maybe this thing that gets me so excited that when I talk to an actor, my heart is just beating out of my chest. And so that was the beginning.
Even for a few minutes, you're like, don't you?
Yeah, it was extraordinary. But I credit the clarity of mind that I had attained by that time, at that day, in that moment. I attribute that to the journey that began with Dianetics. And so from then on, I I decided, well, I will go back to the States. I'll go to New York. I'll get started. And I'll be an actor. And that's what I did. As you do.
As you do.
You know, I could have gone to L.A., but I could have gone to L.A., which I was familiar with the freeways and everything. But I felt like L.A. is so spread out. I don't know if you've been there. It's so disconnected. People are so separated by cars and zip codes, and you're just miles away from anywhere.
Yeah.
New York seemed, maybe this would be a good place, and it was a much better place for me to start.
Where did you come from? Sorry, where were you born?
I was born in Santa Monica, California. Beautiful place. And I grew up in the valley.
Okay.
I'm a valley boy. Yeah. I grew up in the valley, so the valley, famously people talk like this a lot. And I don't know if they always did, but I mean, when I was a kid, I think a lot of people did for sure.
I'm looking forward to deep diving the impressions shortly. Because the next thing I was going to say, so after the meeting with Harvey, you, as far as I understand it, you went quite big into improv acting. Was that kind of like your intro into getting into the industry, like learning the improv side of it?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't part of the plan. I was an improvisational creator in life. I felt like, but I didn't know how to harness that. In other words, I didn't know how to operate in a group that way, because that takes a little bit of training.
Right.
Or at least a group that is tremendously friendly, And I didn't know that many. I didn't have that many friends in New York, so I started to take some classes, and I found instantly that this was something that I was strongly interested in, and it turned out to be a very big deal for me, and I wouldn't have anticipated it. But improv has been the backbone of a lot of things that I've done over the years, and it was my way of entering really strongly into on-camera work and also voiceover as well.
I'm glad you said that, because we had a lady on called Kristen Piver, and she's a big proponent for actors to get involved in improv acting, just because, like, if you're on a, especially if it's animation or gaming, it can be very common for them to say, "Oh, just while you're here, we've got this character brief. Can you just see what you can do with these lines?" Or and obviously, I think there's two ways of looking at it. On the one hand, if you've maybe not had the improv in the past, but you've got experience being in the sessions and know what to expect, you're more comfortable with it.
Session.
On the other hand, if you're maybe trying to get into the industry and, something like that happens to you and you're not quite sure what to do, this is why the improv acting can be really beneficial, because it's like, bang, go, think on your feet, do something now. And you don't feel as freaked out by it. And I personally, I never did the improv acting when I first started out. I live in France now, and I still don't. I'm quite terrible with the accent. So there's no point me going to find an improv class, because I'll just be mostly trying to improvise what they're talking about.
Though. I bet there'll be other expats there who'd be up for a bit of an improv.
But I do think it's something I would definitely like to do. And all I keep hearing is like the how much it can bring to your performances, whether it's just, like, say, thinking in the moment, or if you're asked in the last second just to try something with a character you've not seen before. That improv can be really, really valuable. Really valuable.
Yeah, I agree, and there's a little bit depends on the school that you go to, but most of the training, the good training that you might receive, makes use of this idea. It's a kind of a philosophy of, just do another one, just do more, and without a lot of judgment and criticism. For instance, many acting classes that you go to traditionally now, you go and you do a scene, and then the teacher tells you what's wrong with it, and then the class is opened up to a discussion to tell you what's wrong with you and what's wrong with what you did, and why you should never pursue acting. In improv, you just do a lot of stuff, and nobody says boo. And if they do start to get critical, you're in the wrong class. That's my strong opinion after many years of experience. And but the benefits I found that also
when I was doing.
Sorry.
Go
on. The yes and.
No, okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, the yes and thing for sure. It's built. The whole art form is built on human agreement, and that's a very good skill to have in life. Human agreement. And communicating in that way is a tremendously useful skill. And I found personally that I did not have a lot of acting training per se. I briefly took a class in New York with the Stella Adler School, which was a disaster. And then I got this improv training. And I found that training was very practical in terms of later on getting into television and film and stage, because I already knew that, we can do this a million different ways. There are a lot of different choices. And by the way, I'm going to listen to that other actor, which is a big part of stuff that they have to train actors to do. Like, okay, you've got my line, and now I'm
just reading
going
your
to think
line
about my next line while the other person talks. Have you stopped talking yet? Yes, and now it's my line. And there's this kind of awful amateurish cycle that goes on.
Yeah.
But with improv actors, you don't have that, because they're actually listening. They're actually listening to what you have to say and absorbing it and reacting to it.
Yeah.
And that makes for delightful scene work.
That's a really, really good point. You're absolutely right. Yeah, because when you're reading, I remember when I was in acting class, that was like a large thing. Like, you're just waiting for your line to come up. Like, you have an idea of what's before you, but essentially you're just listening, waiting for your cue to come in. But with improv, you're dialed right in.
Yeah.
You got to be fully in the moment to. But it's difficult though, because your brain has to work at quite a there's everything, there's a lot of moving parts in that moment, because you have to think on your feet. If you are doing improv classes, I've not partook in any, but I've seen it, and it's impressive, because it's a bit like comedians with and I know, Jim, I've looked on some of YouTube. I know you've done some like stand-up kind of material with your impressions and your accents you do, which we'll talk about in a bit. But when somebody might give you a heckle, for example, being able to just like think of something quickly, or I don't know, like just reacting, crowd reactions and stuff, it's very difficult. Like, your brain is working at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and it seems, I won't say it seems easy, but people make it look easy.
Depends who's doing it. Sometimes it feels really arduous.
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes from experience. The stand-up world is a different kind of scene. You do get a lot of heckling, and I'm not a stand-up. I usually do my show in a theatrical kind of environment. I have done comedy clubs before. I've never really had a lot of pleasure in it, because it's not something I have pursued long-term. It's a long-term path, that one, I find. And guys that do that are used to performing for a bunch of drunk people at 2 a.m, and it's fine. They're fine with that, and they're gathering experience. They're gathering material. They know they're headed somewhere else. I don't have the patience for that. If I do a show, I like to set it up and I invite people. I want them to sit. I want them to be no waiters and waitresses serving things, and I don't want them to be too drunk. Maybe they're a little drunk, but not too drunk.
Just mellow.
Yeah. So from getting into the improv acting, I then understand that you did some work on the illustration side, I believe, for Thundercats, and through being around the organisation that created that, you went to spend a bit of time in a recording studio or something. Is that correct? And then it just kind of
I got this great job from Jules Bass when I was a freelance artist. In New York, I financed my acting, building an acting career by doing what I had done professionally prior to that, which was be a cartoonist, illustrator.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's just another thing I sort of trained myself to do, and I always loved to draw, and I found that there was still, at that point in New York, at that moment in time, there was still some demand for somebody that knew how to draw on paper, with a pen. So I went around New York, and I happened to get this great interview with Jules Bass, and he hired me, and eventually I became a character designer on the show Thundercats, which was just starting at that time in 1984, 85.
Yeah,
and
I remember that now.
My brother loved Thundercats. I can still hear the theme tune.
Can you sing it?
Oh, yeah, go on, Jen.
No, I can't sing it, no. It's more like the end of it that I can hear.
Well,
like, Thundercats Home. I wasn't such an
Did you hold your sword up and everything? Like,
yeah.
Thundercats. Probably tried to join in. I was quite little.
That's the great Larry Kenny.
Yeah, exactly.
It was what were they called again? Because I saw it came up the other day because they're making a live action.
The Thundercats and the Mutants.
Yeah, but it not She-Ra. Was that a different thing entirely?
No, her name was.
She-Ra and Mum-Ra.
Anyway, sorry,
Chitara. Chitara was her name.
That's it. There you go.
Panthro, Chitara, Tigra, Lino, Snarf.
Lino, that was the main one.
Wily Kid and Wily Cat.
Lino had proper glam-looking 80s heavy metal
big hair. He was a big hair band guy, yeah.
Lionel could have been like the animated version of the singer for James Hetfield from Metallica.
Yeah, I did this is totally apropos of nothing, but I did a version. I did the voice of Colonel Sanders for quite a long time. I don't know if you get the KFC brand out there in Great Britain, but anyway, I did a version of Thundercats as if every character was voiced by Colonel Sanders. Got that up on my YouTube channel. It's something I drew all the pictures.
I am going to search that as well. I can't even imagine what that would
I
be
think
like.
it was the result of a fever dream I had one time.
Snarf, snarf. What is it, Colonel Lino? Well, it seems that our old arch nemesis, Mumra, is about to storm the cat's lair again. Oh, no, not again. For crying out loud. That's right. So I reckon we ought to commence doing something about it. Colonel Panthro, do you have any answers? I reckon I can work out something in my workshop. It'd be pretty intimidating to a Mumra. If you need any help, Colonel Panthro, you can call on me. Well, thanks a lot, Tiger. I reckon I can do it myself. Okay.
Yeah, so I got to, that was a very stabilizing job. I worked for them for a year. I drew all these characters and weapons and vehicles and yes, indeed, I went one day. I was invited. They said, "Do you want to come down and see the actors record?" And I said, "Yeah." So I went down to this Howard Schwartz recording on the Gray Bar building in New York City, near Grand Central Station, and went up there and watched them record. And then I had another epiphany, like, "Wow, hey, this is the job. This is the job I want. I want to be messing around with people in a recording studio and doing funny voices." Luckily, or whatever, within a couple of years, I was doing just that for that company. I mean, they hired me to do voices for a thing called a comic strip, which was an animated series at 65 episodes. It was a good job.
Wow.
And
what were you? What was it? Were you narrating it, or were you a character in it?
No, it's characters. Bunch of characters. Okay. Yeah, I was a member of the cast of that show. And it was made up of 4 different little 15-minute series or 10-minute series. And I was involved in, I think, 2 of them. Yeah, 2 of them. So it was awesome. Wow. Yeah, I learned a lot.
That's very cool. Do you still illustrate?
I do, but mostly just for myself and for projects that I'm working on. I have on my website, on jimmeskimen.com, I have a little game that I've been running for, 40 years, which is... caption this cartoon. I draw a cartoon, and then people can caption it, and the winner gets a prize. And I've been doing that forever. So now I used to do that. I used to do it in pen and ink, and now I do it on my iPad. But it's all the same.
Yeah. Before I decided to kind of go for it with acting, I did a foundation degree in art and design and specialised in illustration. But that was always pen and paper. Like, I've never progressed to iPads and digital,
you must try it. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. Once you get used to it, it's delightful.
Yeah. Good. I'll take you over.
Well, do you know where actually I'm going this weekend? Is the place of Monet.
The place of Monet. That would be the Giverny, right?
Giverny.
Giverny, whatever. Yeah. Giverny, where we did all the gardening. Yeah.
Jim, you're going to steal all the Manchester jobs. You need to stop.
He had a real plumbing problem, he did. That's the way I look at it. All that work just looks like, well, you've let the tap run, haven't you?
Well, yeah, because I can't draw for shit. I never have been able to. I really wish I could, but my artistic skills are non-existent. But I do enjoy, especially as I've got older, I have more of an appreciation for art, definitely.
Good. Yeah.
And I think it's one of those things.
It's always there. It's always there waiting for us. Yeah, like every guitar you pass by and you don't pick up and strum, it's just there waiting.
Yeah, true.
And you pick it up wherever you left off, and you're like, oh yeah, I think I remember. Yeah, my fingers hurt too much to do this. Yeah. I have that all the time. There's little art forms that I've picked up and dropped and come back to them 5-10 years later, maybe 20 years later. I'm like, oh, this is exactly where I left off.
Yeah. Oh, really? You see, I do it now, and I'm like, oh, I'm a bit rusty.
Well, yeah, I mean, you do get rusty. You do get rusty for sure, but it doesn't take you too long to brush it off, and then you.
And also the joy's still there.
Yeah.
Like, why have I not done this for ages?
Yeah.
My partner, Steph, she's...
Well, the creative thing, I'm a great believer in people pursuing any kind of creative thing they have even the slightest inkling towards, because the creative process will teach you things that nothing else will. You know, just like having a child is a similar sort of creative thing. It's like, boy, you can read about childhood and you can read about raising kids and you can look at kids and you can look at parents. Have a kid. It's a whole nother world.
Never, ever prepared for that.
Very true.
Right? It's the same with painting and drawing and voiceover and writing and I dare say anything else.
Well, yeah, I would totally agree with that because I think definitely thinking about our line of work, I think even if you, I mean, obviously if you have coaching and you practice and you learn, etc., I sort of liken it to this idea that when there's like real money involved, when the stakes are a bit higher, when you're not in a practice session, when you're not coaching, I feel like that is when the real learning starts to happen, when it's in a real stakes environment, because your mindset changes a little bit. You know there's something on the line. I might get booked for this job. It might be my first credit. I might get paid for it. And I think doing that over and over and over, that is where you really start to learn. I think that coaching gets you prepared for that. But I think it's till you put yourself out there in the real world and start trying to get jobs and start trying to be a voiceover, a voice actor, and start booking the work. That is really when you start to properly learn the nuances of being in a session, dissecting scripts properly, etc., and and so on and so forth. So yes, I definitely think there's an element to learning so much and understanding certain things, but then there's also the other side of it. Is like when you start doing it, that is also when you start learning. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and don't you feel like now more than ever, perhaps, the unique individual idea that a person comes up with is very, very valuable. Like I find that a lot of people that are getting started in voiceover or in acting for television or film or whatever sometimes have the mistaken idea that there is a right way, like an answer, like a right answer. And it's not that kind of test.
No.
It's a creative art. And you always hear about stories about actors that came into the audition studio or submitted some kind of a self-tape or something, and the casting director went, "Whoa, what's this?" And the director went, "Hey, wow, what a unique take." Not that it always has to be so outlandish or just far-flung, but unique, to you. Yeah. And then that's the artist's search. It's like, what do I care about? What do I think is significant about this scene or these lines or this character? And how can I really, really create on it? And the more, I think, married it is to your sensibility, it takes courage. The more valuable it is to people that are looking for a dynamic, interesting, convincing, compelling performance.
But I think that's...
I 100% agree. Sorry, Michael. I feel like we've heard from casting directors over and over again as well on this podcast about how the best thing we can do to improve our craft is to be ourselves and to bring ourselves to the performance. And I think we're all still guilty of, I can't speak for you, Jim, but of trying to get it right, as you say, trying to think like, oh, what might they want? But actually that's just completely taking away from what you can bring to it yourself. And I think that humanity is absolutely what we need to bring.
Think for me, one of the things I still struggle with is, like you said, Jen, like you said, what do they want? You can overthink that till, as they say, the cows come home, but ultimately you've just got to take the brief that you've got, do your interpretation. But I think that thing I struggle with is how much is too much. Like, you don't want to be, like, one thing we hear consistently is for a casting director, if they listen to 200 auditions and everyone's followed the same sort of brief, they all just start to sound the same. And they look for that one that just stands out that little bit more, where they go, oh, I remember that for XYZ reason, because it stood out. Whereas I'm like, I don't want to be that person so much so where they go, did you read the brief? Like, what on earth have you just sent me? Or what is this? But you want to be different.
But you definitely stood out.
Yeah, for all the wrong reasons, though. And that's what, and that is something I still struggle with. It's trying to be creative without being disrespectful. Not, well, I say disrespectful, but it kind of is in a way of taking what they've asked you to do and just not disregarding it, but going so far to a point where you want to stand out that you've kind of lost yourself a little bit, you lost your way a little bit. And I still struggle with that every single time when I get sides and I get briefs.
What's your approach, Jim?
For certain characters,
Mikey. What's your approach? So when you receive, if you receive auditions still, like what's your process for that? I'd love to know.
I definitely do receive auditions. I just did one a little while ago. These days I I recognize that it's a very arbitrary kind of assignment, and sometimes they'll just pick whoever. I've been lucky in that I've worked consistently over the years, and because of my improv training and my extensive improv performance background, I am very confident with my first approach. So I'm like I'm unconcerned, you know. So I will do a first take, often cold read. I'll look at it and I'll go, okay, let's get this thing rolling. All right, and then I'm reading it, and all right, I'll do it all the way through, and then I'll go back and I'll go, all right, well, now I see what it's about. Let's see. I wonder if I can personalize that a little bit more, or improvise a little bit more, or make it more authentic, more. Now, my idea about how would be a good way to hear that, a good way to do that. And then I'll try it again, and I might try it a third time. But I only send, generally speaking, unless they want more than 2. I'll generally only send 2. But I have a lot of confidence in my first take out of the gate, and that's earned. You know, I've had to really work at that, and I do an awful lot of cold reading. I do most of my audiobooks. I record a lot of audiobooks. I mostly cold read them, sometimes to my peril, but most often I've gotten away with it. I find that it's useful in terms of keeping something very, very fresh and keeping my own interest up, and also keeping my pay rate up, because I don't have to spend so many hours.
That's true.
But so I think people should just kind of take a stab at it, you know, and not get too precious about it, and. Boy, it is a struggle. It's always going to be a struggle because we're racing, particularly in voiceover, where I assume what we're talking about mainly is commercials and adverts and things like that. Yeah, where
I was just going to ask, actually, do you have a favorite genre that you do? Like, what was it commercial you've just done now? And do you have a favorite genre?
You know, I like all kinds of things. I do like doing characters. I had a great time doing Colonel Sanders. That was one of the most prosperous and fun gigs in my life. And I did that for 7 years. It was amazing. And then they switched agencies. So I like that a lot. Oh, shucks, I lost the thread.
Audiobook. Yeah, so...
You're talking about which genre you like, characters.
Right. Characters, yeah. I like them very much. And I do like reading audiobooks, particularly if it's a good book. Which I've mainly had a chance to read many, many good books.
Nonfiction or
either fiction or nonfiction. I just read a very beautiful book about Manila, the Philippines during World War II. That was fascinating, called the Manila Poker Club. It was nonfiction about Eisenhower and the president of the Philippines. Anyway, fascinating subject. Never thought about the Philippines during World War II. Turns out that was a hell of a hotbed of activity. So it was great. Great to learn about that part of the world. So I like to learn. I'm a lifelong learner, I guess, hopefully, and so I like audiobooks for that reason. But I like fiction as well, and characters, and playing different characters, and making an old guy or whatever. No, it's not so hard to do an old guy because I think he's looking at me through the mirror sometimes.
I've talked about this in the past as well. I'm similar to you, Jim. I really love learning stuff. Like I've started working with the Paris Museum, and they're doing this whole section on the history of humans. Through a lot of the dialogue they give me, and quite a lot of it is quite big text, and the idea is as people move along to different sections, the narration pops up. But it's fascinating. It's sort of like when sometimes you're reading it, you take as you're reading it, you're digesting it at the same time. You're like, oh wow, that's fascinating. And I always thought that actually, because I'm not very good at doing accents and voices, so I've always stayed away from audiobooks for that reason, because I think you need to try and differentiate the voices that you need. But I think the non-fiction side of it would be really interesting, learning about historical stuff. And now that I'm starting to do work with museums,
you don't generally change your voice for those. I like that about non-fiction too.
Exactly that, and I just
straight narrator.
Easy to cold read as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, same with the commercial stuff. When I was saying before about sort of not sure about the ways to approach script, it was more towards like your voice acting scripts. If you get a brief and it's character in this scene, and so on and so forth. Yeah. A lot is overthinking.
You've reminded me. You reminded me of the thread that I dropped. So in commercials, why it's always going to be a struggle is because commercials are trying to be persuasive. We're not just actors. We're also working for a company that's trying to sell something. So it's marketing.
Right.
So to that end, we're like the sand is kind of slipping out from under us all the time while we're working, because people are getting used to a certain type of performance. And whereas a certain type of performance 6 months ago really cut through, and we were like, wow, what is that guy saying? Or what is that girl saying? It's really interesting.
Yeah.
Now we've heard it all over the place, and we're like, okay, I get what this is.
Yeah.
You know, it's like kind of like AI images. Remember a few years ago when people were posting all these pictures of themselves in different artistic styles, and you're like, Jesus, that's amazing. That's like a Van Gogh, and that's a Vermeer, and is that Andy Warhol? And then you see it 5 times, you're like, all right, fine, I get it. And it doesn't impact anymore. So we're always, as commercial actors, not as actors, but as commercial actors, I think we're always fighting the fact that marketing is kind of feeds upon itself.
Yeah. That's a good point. I've not thought about that, actually. It's very true.
I find a lot of marketing, also commercial scripts now, there's still obviously a lot that fall into that stereotypical, like, this weekend and blah, blah, blah. But a lot of them now do have an acting element to it. Like, you play a person in a scene. Like, I got an audition just before we jumped on to play the husband in a married couple who are arguing. It's about marriage counselling, and I played auditioning for the husband in the argument. And again, it's just another example of like trying to bring an element of extra realism to a commercial. Because like you said, Jim, a lot of them, you know, if it's the same kind of promotional style, promotional delivery, they all sound a bit same. But then I think something that makes people feel something, they can connect with it, certainly relate to it, hits a little different. And I've noticed for a while now, quite a lot of the commercial work that I get does lean into that sort of thing.
Well, look at the fact, too, that a lot of our work is in the environment now. A lot of recorded work, videos, everything, is at a time when the airwaves or whatever you want to call them, the ways that people receive communication is inundated with actual, authentic, live, uncut, unproduced material that is fascinating. And so we are up against that, and I think it makes it even more acute or obvious that, this is a produced commercial, and those are actors.
So it seems like obviously the trend for a number of years now has been conversational, hasn't it? But then it's kind of moved even sometimes to sounding like an influencer. So it's even less, it's unnatural in a very natural way, or vice versa.
It's almost like you're not... Yeah,
you're
it's
a real
like,
person, but also you need to get across this very strict brand message, which seems really unnatural. But just sound as if you're a regular person.
Yeah, see that quite a lot.
It's a mind bender. It's just crazy. I mean, believe me, I've been struggling with this for years and years. They used to say we don't want an announcer, and they probably still say that. But I remember when I started in the 80s, they were saying what we do not want is an announcer voice, and that was, kind of a reference back to commercials that sounded like this, where you're going to want to get a washing machine and put it in your back pantry. And that was a long time ago, but within memory. And people were still doing it. And what they meant was, we do not want an inauthentic delivery. Okay. And they still say that today. And that's, how it's expressed in a lot of different ways. And inauthentic means, well, I know you're lying to me, or I know you're being paid to say it. And so it has no impact, Someone comes up to you and goes, "Hey, have I got something for you?" You just know I'm not interested from the get-go. I don't even know what you might have something that I desperately need. I suddenly am disinterested.
The other thing is true as well, where you'll see something like corporate scripts, where they'll say it needs to sound conversational, relatable, and then they'll give you the most corporate jargon script that you wouldn't ever speak to someone.
Yeah, the X500 machine is
in an emerging world.
Say to your friend, my friend would leave. They would not want to hear about this.
In an emerging world, customer satisfaction.
Exactly. Well, I think that's the corporate executives and the writers and struggling with trying to make something sound convincing.
Yeah,
while at the same time having to deliver just a kind of a laundry list of specifics and schematics and whatever, and it's like, oh my God, that's why they're few and far between these things that are very successful. It's a dog-eat-dog world out there. Absolutely. For sure.
So, just trying to bring us back to where we were before, because
we did warn you we'd go off in tangent.
yeah, but they're fun though.
You did warn that. Yeah, that's right. That's true.
So from that moment, actually, because this is kind of like, so from that moment of you being in that studio, that did take you on quite an incredible run with commercials. Like you did the Colonel Sanders for KFC for 7 years. I mean, your list of credits is just phenomenal. I mean, it really is. But obviously you did some TV work as well. I mean, you were in Apollo 13. I'm looking now, you're in Landman at the moment, Hunters. You played Ron Howard in Family Guy, one of my favourites. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on. How did, like, for yourself, like, from being in that booth that day and then deciding to start, I want to go on this journey, how, like, can you sort of quantify the feeling of, like, knowing that you got to a stage where, first of all, your work on voices and impressions was being widely regarded? I don't know, did you ever take a stock and just sit back and go, wow, I've been in a lot of really cool stuff, like, and that just explosion of the career, like, when you went in that booth that day, did you ever think it would lead to where it led to?
Well, I certainly hoped it would. I wanted to. I'm a little bit. Well, I was about to be a little bit more disparaging than I probably should be, but I had confidence back then, and I was 24, 25 years old. I really enjoyed performing, and I felt like I had a little bit of a leg up, as I said before, on others of my age who had not put in the time on impressions and accents and voice acting. I in my spare time, that's what I like to do. And so I came sort of prepared, and when I actually got into the market in New York and was sitting around with other actors in audition studios and waiting and taking our turns and reading with other people and then getting little jobs and stuff, I determined pretty fast that, I'm just as good as these guys. I'm inexperienced. I haven't got the mileage that they have, but I have what it takes. I definitely do. And I got, some agents agreed with me, and so that they would send me out, and that was great. And I've had a very, as you see, a very varied career, a little bit of everything from video games to radio commercials and parts in big movies and parts in little movies and parts in great TV shows and parts in. Well,
let me just while we're on that, just quickly looking out for video games. I mean, we're talking the Batman series, Baldur's Gate, Call of Duty. You were John F. Kennedy in Black Ops.
Yes.
I still remember that scene with that character. I loved it. Diablo.
Well, you were a player of that particular game, is that right, Michael?
That's exactly right.
So you were killing zombies with President Kennedy. Lock and load.
We are in grave danger from the communists. Our freedom, our very way of life is at risk. Dragovich.
Final Fantasy 13-2. I mean, obviously, of course, a massive character you've been playing for a while is Genie from Aladdin.
Oh, yes, the Genie, the blue Genie, the great Robin Williams. Yes, I've been able to do that quite a bit for
it is honestly
a good long time.
Did that.
Good long time, yeah. It's great. It's been an honor and also a big workout. It's very aerobic kind of impression to do. It takes a lot of energy. Whoa! You have to really muster everything you've got and muster all your brain power and also put everything on random access. So.
Hello and welcome to the world under the sea.
But Genie, all the water. How are we going to breathe?
Worry not, with my phenomenal cosmic powers. I'll make sure you breathe normally for the duration of the show, as long as you make sure you laugh at my jokes, okay? Moving on, let's find out who's here to play.
Well, it's a lot of fun.
I'd love to know, sorry Michael, I know that you're on a thing, but like in terms of getting into that character though, like how, do you have a process for that? Like obviously you've been doing that one for a long time, but is it like you've got a word or a posture or something that helps you get into that? Or is it just you're so used to it that it's muscle memory?
Yeah, it's decision. I just decide. I'm very well drilled. Okay. I do it all the time, so I've had to do it in front of audiences, and I've had to do it in obviously in recording sessions. And if I can't do it in half a second, then I'm really slow.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
It's practice. I mean, it's part of being a professional, as you both know, is practice. It's study and practice and application, and then that's how you do it. It's there's no easier way than that.
Yeah, do they just know that you could do that voice? Like, what was the process
Yeah,
like for that?
Well, I auditioned originally. I auditioned for
Yeah.
it, and they listened to me, and they listened to 50 other people, and they chose me. So I'm very grateful. Yeah, Disney character voices I've worked for over the years, various little projects, and
That's very cool.
yeah, I haven't done it for a little while. I'm not sure if I've been replaced or not. But I had done it for a good long time, like almost 15 years.
It's a long time.
It's an amazing
Yeah, well, it's
achievement.
funny you said that actually, because one thing I was going to ask you was with the rise of things like AI. Because one thing I think I heard you talk about this on another podcast, if I'm not mistaken, that you were sometimes called in to dub lines in post-production.
Yeah, to loop other
Yeah.
actors. Yeah, that's a job I feel is probably going to go to get diminished quite a bit, if not go away entirely, because it's usually a function of finishing a movie, and they just need to. They had a little noise on a line or something, and I'm sure that there are ways where it will be even more quick and effective and inexpensive to just repair it through AI. But for a long time, it's been the case that, for example, I did Colin Firth's voiceover for trailers for 1917, and there were just different versions of what they wanted him to say, and so things that he didn't say in the movie entirely. So it was beholden on me to come up with the performance. And that kind of thing, I don't know if it's going to survive or not, or if there's any use for it or not. But
listen, I mean,
My mind's a bit blown.
I sincerely hope. I mean, we are sort of going through. Well, Jim, you won't know this, but obviously, but for people who listen to the podcast, I talk about AI all the time. I'm fascinated by it.
He really does.
And just because I'm really passionate about how, whilst it is this, technology that can do X, Y, Z, I feel like the tide is definitely turning, that a lot of people are realising, yeah, it can do it, but it doesn't do it good enough that it would be better than a human. And for like what you just proved there, I think, yes, they could probably get an AI version of an actor's voice and stick it in, but it lacks that human emotion and nuance that makes people believe it. And that's something that's so you can't replace that. So I sincerely hope that that you continue to get to do it whenever you're called upon, because I think people can tell as well. I mean, you saw that Amazon had to cancel. They greenlit 3 new shows which are all AI made, and within a very, very, very short period of time, and I want to say inside a month, 2 of them were cancelled because of so much backlash. And then they did this show called something Banana something.
The anime.
Yeah, and they brought in, what they did was, for the dubbing aspect of it, it's worth a watch on YouTube just to see how bad it is. And the fact that somebody went, yeah, that'll do.
And anime fans are
anime are
hardcore.
passionate fans. And these dubs were
yeah.
so atrocious that they got this tremendous backlash, and they had to pull it all down.
Yeah.
So the sentiment is there. The problem is, I think a lot of the times, the narrative that's largely shoved down people's throat, that it's this, it's that, are the ones that are invested in it, that need you to believe it because they're on a sinking ship that's worth tens of billions. But people in the real world are like, it's crap, I don't like it. Like, so stop trying to convince me of something that everybody agrees unanimously that it's not something that they enjoy. So yeah, I sincerely hope that it doesn't take anything away from you, because I think being able to do things that you do with these impressions and these characters, it's a skill and it's an incredible talent. So the idea that...
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it a lot. That's tell you what, that's helpful.
I'm just thinking, like, do you have, obviously, as you said, you've got a really diverse career. Like, obviously, you've got some real strengths. Like, do you have a favourite? Is it like on-screen acting? Is it voice acting? Is it impressions? Or is it impossible to choose?
No, thank you for that. It's a nice question, and thanks for the kind words, both of you. At this stage in my career, I've done a lot of different things, and some things that held a lot of excitement for me are just kind of, okay, well, I've done that. I can do that.
Yeah.
So these days, I'm really interested in drama.
Okay.
And on-camera drama. I'm going to be on a show called Tracker. I'm shooting next week, and it's a dramatic role, You mentioned I'm on Landman. Landman is very satisfying because it's the excellent writing of Taylor Sheridan. the magnificent performances of the cast, Billy Bob Thornton, Demi Moore, and others. And
great cast.
That's an area where I haven't exactly gotten comfortable. I haven't been there long enough to be comfortable, or to, I don't know, to feel like I've got this rolling now.
Yeah, you've got
I do a few every year, and I'd like to do more and more. I'd like to be on a series regular, but I've been in some very nice dramatic roles in the last few years, and it's a real challenge for me. It gets me definitely to focus. I don't multitask during that time very much, because it's like, okay, this is the real deal.
Yeah. What about
they're going to be watching me do
really
that. They're going to be watching any part of me. In animation and in voiceover, we don't have to be observed so much, and we can look like whatever we want to look like. We can move like whatever we want to move like. On camera, it's a 360-degree performance.
Definitely. It's terrifying.
It's a good challenge. Scary.
I've been trying to get back into on-screen acting since having my kids over the last year or so, and did a commercial not long ago, and I really felt that. So really thinking about, actually, is any part of me going to be giving away that I'm playing, am I fully immersed in this character, and fully living this character, rather than like Jen playing a character, am I this character? Whereas I think you can get away with, the physicality behind the mic. You can do what you need to do to make those sounds. Or
do you feel a bit more exposed? Is that kind of what you mean?
100%.
They're more exposed, 100% more exposed, and theater even more, I think. But film can get in pretty tight.
Yeah,
so,
but theatre, there's no safety. You've got to get yourself out of that problem, haven't you?
Well, that's for the duration, because you're like, I got to be this character for 45 minutes here or something. Sometimes it's very long, but in film they can come up right here, and you better be right. You better be 100%.
Yes.
Yeah, interesting challenge, different challenges.
What about audio drama, radio plays? Do you do much of those, or?
In the States, we don't really have much of that.
Really? I thought it was the opposite. I thought the States was quite... Because Amazon do the Audible originals, where they've started to do ensemble
and I've done
casts.
some. I did Space 1969 and Space 1972 for Audible with Natasha Lyonne. But they're not, to me, they're no different than an audiobook job. And you're alone. You're not with other people. So it's not like the good old days and a bunch of people in a booth creating an audio drama. We don't have like people listening on the radio much, although there are podcasts and things. But it's not like you have in England, and I wish it was.
Yeah, we. Well, to be honest, I thought I was under the impression they were more popular in America than they are here. But I know they've definitely grown in popularity in the UK.
Well, you have a real tradition there. I mean, here, our radio for us is a popular art form. Radio drama and radio comedy went out, I don't know, in the 60s, 70s.
Wow. I think it's one thing that I was really determined to try and get into this year a bit more. And I've done quite a few this year, which I'm really pleased with. But I think for me, I always like the idea of trying to be on screen. But yeah, exactly like you both said. When I was doing... before I started going to acting class and I was doing the voice acting, I was like, it'll be easier because, you can present your whole self. You've got your physicality to sell the lines and everything else. Couldn't be further from the truth, because everything has to work in tandem. Like, if your facial expression doesn't quite capture the words that you're saying, or if you're looking in there's so many moving parts. And I was like, listen, I completely got it wrong. Like, on-screen acting, like I said, you feel exposed. There is so much to think about just to get the delivery across. Whereas here, we just sit behind this microphone and we can just create away, and there's not really any as pressure as such. So it is difficult.
And yet, there are people that look at what you do and what Jen does and go, "Wow, I could never be in front of a microphone. I could never hear my own voice. I don't know what to do with a script." So we all have our own challenges, and the great thing about the arts is if you will embrace a new challenge, it will teach you something. It will give you, like people that why do we even revere great actors is because any of us who have dipped a toe in that pool realize, well, there's a lot of moving parts. This is not as easy as it looks. You've got to get the job. You've got to keep your health. You've got to, really know the character. You've got to memorize the lines, which is daunting to most people. There's so many myriad things that when you see an actor do something on stage, to them it's like, well, I do this all the time. To us mortals, it's like, holy crap, what have you done? It's amazing. Like watching a great athlete, you're like, whoa. I could never in a million years do that on a parallel bars. I don't even know where to grab them.
I bet you put your mind to it, Jim, you could, from what I'm hearing.
You're right. But yeah, you could, and that's the point, is that if you started out in like ballroom dancing or anything at all, you'd go, wow, this looks really tough. Then you'd get some good instructions, and you would learn something about controlling your own body. Yeah. You would learn something about controlling your mind, and that's all good.
Well, two quick things before we have to think about wrapping up is kind of on what you've just mentioned there, Jim. The industry has obviously changed quite a bit, from when you started out. There were no, we have home studios are now way more commonplace. But for where things are now, for people who are always trying to get into the industry, from your time and experience, what would you say, if there's anything you can think of off the top of your head, what are probably the most fundamental things? In fact, actually, one thing I was going to say that I picked up on before is one thing that I hear quite often is a lot of people deal with like imposter syndrome and a bit of self-doubt. And from the way you've spoken quite often, I get the impression that doesn't really faze you very much. Like you've got a quite strong mentality in towards your belief in yourself and what you put forward. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah. As far as belief in self and self-confidence and turning down the volume on that very critical, self-critical voice that sometimes people have in their minds. Again, I have to credit the book Dianetics, The Modern Science of Mental Health by L. Ron Hubbard, because that's where I started to take a look at that. And once you're aware that there is some part of your mind that is kind of dedicated to that degree of quote, help, then you begin to take steps to really get rid of it. And that's what I did. So that led me to improv. Improv was a very non-critical environment where criticism or self-doubt just got in the way and impeded the whole process. And so if I wanted to perform, I had to just get into the habit of getting rid of any negative thoughts. And once you get into the habit of it and recognize, well, this is coming from a place that I don't need to acknowledge. This is
not serving.
It would be like if you know that your neighbor is a maniac and he's criticizing you all the time. After a while, when he calls you up on the phone, you're like, I do not need to take this call.
Yeah. I think I'd learned that quite quickly.
Yeah, it's true. Like,
right.
These thoughts, they don't serve you. Like
from inside the brain.
It's trying to compartmentalize them.
No, they don't serve you. They don't serve you. And really, the part of the mind that you want to concentrate on is the analytical part of the mind that makes choices, that makes artistic choices, that makes that uses what it knows. You have your memories and your experiences, and those are the things that you can get information from and make choices from, and you don't have to go to the dark place and go, well, what could go wrong here? Let's see. Let me see all the things I remember where a person who tried to do this failed miserably. I want to see, what were those things? This boots you nothing.
Yeah. Because what I was going to say to you was, like, what advice would you give people starting out? But I actually think what you've said is better, because we all know that you need to get training, you need to study the craft, etc. But I think because there's such mental gymnastics in this line of work, whether, because a lot of people, let's focus on voice acting for the time being, it's they submit auditions, will they won't they, was it good enough, etc., etc. I've not booked enough this month, and so on and so forth. And sometimes that mental gymnastics can be, and I've said it before, sometimes the biggest obstacle to people's success is themselves, and it's like it's allowing certain things to get in your mindset. So I think actually the way you've described it is probably one of the most important things in terms of embarking on a journey, whether you're starting out or you're midway through. I think it's dealing with that mental side.
At any point, I think, shutting out the voice. I'm really hoping you'll indulge a question, which is kind of going back a little bit, but just for my own sake, sorry. Just when you're talking about the drama and like playing these dramatic characters, I would love to know what your process is when you get a script and you're playing this character, or even for the audition. What's your process? Like, how do you pick that apart? What do you do?
Well, I read the script very carefully.
Yeah.
I make sure that I understand all the words in the script.
Mm-hmm.
and that's very important. You really have to understand all the words, certainly that your character is saying, and you have to understand all the words that the people talking to you in the scene are saying, so that you get the full import of it.
Yeah.
And before I learn lines or anything, I make sure that I know what all those words mean.
Yeah.
And then I get to work on who is this person.
Yeah.
Before I start memorizing anything or working out anything. And this is stuff that I've learned from a school called the Acting Center, which has online courses, by the way. We have people from the UK that study there. It's my wife's school, so full disclosure, it's my wife's school. But it's a very good place to learn, and it's the only technique that I like to use these days because it's the most effective. And, I try to craft a character that I think would be interesting. Or I feel like I understand this guy. I know this guy. I'm not thinking from the point of, as we've talked about before, what are they looking for?
Yeah.
I have done that in the past, and it's okay. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. What's more reliable, more satisfying, is to go, who could I make? What specific person could I make this guy? And try to realize this character. Maybe it's based on somebody I knew. Maybe it's based on somebody I've seen or heard about, or just get a feeling. And there's a moment where you kind of review it, and there's lots of ways to kind of sort it out and create that character. You go, well, what's their emotion? What's their health level? What's all these things you can look at that's with part of a person. And then once I've gotten a kind of an aha moment, and I go, okay, it's this guy. And I've taken some notes or whatever. It doesn't have to be terribly significant. It doesn't have to take hours and hours. Sometimes it's very fast. I go, I totally know what this guy is. I knew a guy like this. Yeah. Then I'll start to work the lines and the script and get familiar, first of all, with the basic flow of the scenes. Where does the without worry about words, like where is the scene going? Well, first I come in and I will point this out to the detective, and then he starts to question me, and I start getting defensive, and then he lets go of me, and and I leave the room. Okay, and I learn that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's how that goes. All right, good. And then I'll start learning the lines on top of that. And that for me is a very thorough and effective way to craft something. That's how I do it these days.
Okay, that's really interesting. So you're kind of understanding the script, and then understanding the kind of like what is the scene doing? How do you serve the scene? Like, what is it trying to convey?
Yeah, exactly. I did a scene in Landman, talking about words, and I got this. My second or third episode in Landman was so different than the other two. The first one I understood very well. It was an attorney commiserating with the staff of his client, and who was in the hospital. John Hamm's character was in the hospital. And I was like, I totally get this. I mean, I understand the purpose of this. I think I understand who this guy is. Yeah. Very simple. Third episode, they sent me a script, and I was like, I don't understand what any of this means. It was all financial, oil, law, arcane Byzantine kind of connections between money market accounts and private equity funds. Like, I'm not a money manager. I don't know what any of this means. And I was like, oh my God, I bemoaned the fact that I don't think how am I going to learn this? Because it was a lot too. If you see the episode, it's going on and on and on. And I'm like, oh, it's like a nightmare. So I called my business manager, and he was an old business manager of mine, and I thought, well, he'll know. I mean, he knows about all this stuff. And he was like, God, Jim, I don't know. This doesn't seem to be right. So eventually I did talk to somebody who could walk me through it, but it was like a search. And then once I had an idea, okay, I kind of know what that means. Yeah. And then I actually took some clay and I put it on a table, and I went, all right, this is the money market campaign, and the money goes here into the private equity funds, and I mapped it all out so that it would have some reality, because to me, all those things are just words. They're just syllables.
You have to get it visualize it.
And a real guy would know. Yeah, a real attorney would have reality on all those things.
Yeah, day in, day out. Wow,
that's the difference, though, isn't it? Yeah, it's like you said, it's bringing these words like almost to life by having, like you said, like sections that you can refer to and becomes more hands-on in that respect rather than just words on a page. Fascinating. Jim, I could generally talk to you all day. I know you haven't. I know we can't.
You've got a life outside of this podcast.
I guess the only one final thing I will request, and I know you're not a performing monkey, but I couldn't leave without requesting.
I kind of am.
Would you kindly share with us your 3 favourite voices you enjoy doing, just to close off the episode?
Well, I mean, I did Colin Firth earlier, and that's sort of one that a lot of people respond to favourably, so I'm grateful for that. I also do Tommy Lee Jones. I don't know if you're familiar with Tommy Lee Jones over in your country, but he's a resident of San Saba, Texas, and a very, very good actor, skilled director as well. And, you know, my big general go-to guy these days is Sir Patrick Stewart, your countryman, who's, you know, still so inspiring and enjoyable.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of fun. I think it just gives people a nice warm glow. And for me, it gives me all sorts of
glow.
Nice warm glow. And it's coming off of my head, actually. So that glow.
I can empathise with that.
The older I get and the better looking he gets, the more we look like one another.
Honestly,
so much,
Jim, it's been an absolute pleasure just getting to know you a bit better and sort of learning about your career.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, there's obviously a lot we haven't even mentioned about aspects of your career. We have tried to sort of keep it more on the voice acting side of it. But yeah, before you go, actually, so you do Instagram with your daughter, I believe.
Yeah, a lot of Instagram with my daughter, at Jimpressions. And you can find me on YouTube at Jimpressions also, and JimMeskimen.com is my website. Go on there, and any of your listeners, go to join the Meskiverse. I've got a little community there, and there's all kinds of fun stuff just for you guys.
And you've got, because you also, I'm actually on your website right now, because I do actually like you've used some good little branding stuff. So you got the Meskiverse, and there was another one that I saw earlier. Where's it gone? Meskiflix, Meskiflix, that's
Meskiflix, yeah. Got little clips.
Yeah, so definitely
I hope you
for our listeners, definitely check out Jim's website, because not only the community aspect's great, and there's some the coaching as well you talked about that's available, but just the incredible list of credits, it's inspiring to say the least.
Wow, thank you so much. I'm honored.
Well,
good luck to both of you.
Cheers, Jim.
Thank you. I hope we will see you on the stage sometime.
I hope so too.
Thanks very much, Jim, and thanks very much, you guys listening. I hope you enjoyed this one as much as we did, and we will see you all on the next episode. Cheers, folks. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Cheers, Jim.